Giorgia Meloni has now been the Italian Prime Minister for 3 years and topping opinion polls for just as long. She's defied her critics so far and brought stability to a country notorious for collapsing coalitions. So, what is her secret? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, after Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy party won Italy's 2022 general election, there was concern its post-fascist roots would grow. But after 3 years leading a right-wing coalition, Meloni has governed from the centre, forming strong relationships across Europe and beyond. What's behind the success of Giorgia Meloni?
Italy's short-lived governments had become a running joke in Europe, with 68 of them in almost as many years. That's a new cabinet in place on average every 13 months. But few are laughing now. After 3 years in the job, Rome's first female prime minister is the longest-serving head of government since Silvio Berlusconi. Giorgia Meloni and her Brothers of Italy party shifted from a minor opposition player to the party of power in 2022, taking over from the COVID-era government of national unity led by technocrat Mario Draghi. Fears over the party's post-fascist roots and ideology have not materialised, and Meloni has been praised for restoring Italy's credibility as a global player. She has slashed the number of illegal migrants, largely by working with countries in the region. But the real secret to her success has been the economy. Business confidence is back, and tax incentives have seen the world's wealthy flock to the former sick man of Europe. Surveys have put her Fratelli d'Italia party out in front for the entirety of her leadership, and it triumphed in last year's EU elections. But it's not all bravo just yet. Italy has soaring national debt, slow economic growth, and a collapsing birth rate. For now, Italians are betting on this working-class girl from Rome to bring back La Dolce Vita and keep Italy fiasco-free.
Well, let's meet our guests. Joining us from Rome, we have Marta Grande. She is a former member of Parliament for the Five Star Movement political party. Also in the Italian capital, we have Valeria Giannotta from the Centre for International Politics Studies. And in London, we have Professor Lorenzo Codogno, who is from the London School of Economics. You're all very welcome to this roundtable. Marta, to you first. Giorgia Meloni has now passed more than 1,000 days in office. That's a very important achievement to bring stability to Italy. Do you think that is the key achievement so far?
Well, definitely it is one of the most important things she has achieved. In Italy, as we know, stability is something very complicated to keep in place, but it's also a particular aspect of our politics. Instability is part, from my opinion, is part of a real democratic Italian process, in the sense that in the instability we find new ways of cooperating. She's achieving something that in Italy is very, again, complicated, but that, from my point of view, also means that there isn't a great discussion within the parties that support a government, but also if you look at the work that Parliament is doing, also within the Parliament. There isn't a great discussion, a great compromise between parties. So indeed, yes, she's achieving stability, which is great. It's something that we all should look for. But it also implies other subtle things that are happening, and that, from my point of view, means that something is not working within Italian politics.
Thanks, Marta. Let's bring in Lorenzo. Lorenzo, to you, give me your honest assessment here. Are you surprised that Giorgia Meloni has got into power, got down to business, and she's proved a lot of people wrong?
Not really. Actually, I said at the very beginning, she shifted a little bit attitude day one when he got into office. So effectively, it is happening the way it was expected. I'm not a great fan, to be quite honest, but we have to recognize that there has been stability, as was mentioned before.
What do you not like, Lorenzo?
And she has been
Lorenzo,
able to-
what do you not like about Meloni when you say you're not a big fan?
Well, you know, she is very much leaning to the right, and the government is very much leaning to the right as well, given that not only you have Brothers of Italy within government and the major force in government, but also you have the Lega Salvini. Salvini is right now trying to compete with Brothers of Italy in being more extreme to the right and introducing xenophobic anti-immigrants and sometimes pro-Russian comments, and that is a bit disturbing in my view. But you know, that's the way it is. Again, Brothers of Italy is trying to cover the full spectrum, meaning not really severing the links with the, say, fascist background that is inevitably there, but at the same time moving to the center on most policies.
Valeria, one thing I notice about Giorgia Meloni is that she spoke quite kind of extreme language at times before she got into power. And then as soon as she became Italian Prime Minister, she kind of moderated her opinions, she calmed things down. There was almost a very discernible shift in her attitude to certain things.
Yes, definitely she has been proving that she's quite realistic and pragmatic leader. Comparing to the past when she was in the opposition and also by observing her political campaign, much of the narrative and the rhetoric has been changed. Definitely when she was in the opposition, she spoke harshly against Islam, and this has changed. Also, she took a sort of pro-Russian stance, and this has changed as well. This has much to do, first of all, with the fact that she's leading a coalition made by different souls. We have Fratelli d'Italia, the party that she's leading. Then we have Forza Italia, a more center-right party, and Lega, led by Salvini, which is much more racist and xenophobic, as it was mentioned. And definitely, we can record a sort of continuity regarding the traditional line of Italy as a prime minister, for example, when it comes to the Atlantist approach that Meloni has taken. So I think the shift has much to do with some domestic and political convenience, as well as much to do with the new international and regional environment all of us is dealing with.
Thanks, Valeria. Well, let's go to Urbino in central Italy, where we're joined by the politics professor Jim Newell from the University of Urbino. Jim, thanks for joining us on Roundtable. Giorgia Meloni, she's sorting out Italy's economy. She's tackling migration. She has a very good relationship with President Trump in the United States. She's had a lot on her plate over the last few years to deal with.
Yes, indeed, she has, and she's had to face a number of significant challenges. One of the most recent challenges is the need to increase spending on defence as a result of the recent NATO agreement, which will be very difficult for the Italian economy, bearing in mind the level of public debt, which is projected to reach 138% next year. She's had considerable challenges, for example, in the field of migration. At the end of 2024, she reached an agreement with Albania for the setting up there of a migrant reception centre, which is where, in the intentions of the Italian government, male migrants who were deemed initially at least not to have a legitimate claim to asylum in Italy would be sent and then sent back. And she found herself involved in all kinds of legal difficulties as a result of that. And so having spent 600 million euros on the asylum centre, it remains empty. Various other difficulties she's had to face concern the situation in the Middle East and the significant public demonstrations that have taken place as a result of that, where she's had to tread a very difficult path between meeting Italy's international commitments and trying to deal with the level of domestic feeling concerning that. So yes, certainly she's had enormous difficulties to have to deal with. I mean, those are only three, but one could go on and mention several others as well.
Thank you, Jim. Back to Marta. Marta, Italy's next election is not for another 2 years, scheduled in 2027. Just looking at the opposition, so the opposition leader of the Democratic Party, Elly Schlein, she doesn't really get anywhere near the popularity levels of Meloni. Do you think she will be the person to challenge Meloni in 2 years' time? Or a lot of people are talking up this left-wing mayor of Genoa, Silvia Salas. Could she be someone to challenge Meloni?
Well, I can't really tell now because 2 years is very long time to decide a leader for the opposition. We don't even know which parties will be, in just one group to be, let's say, an organized opposition. If they will go all together or not, we still don't know that. So it is not possible to say who will lead this coalition. It is true that Meloni is very popular, but it is also true that half Italians, basically half the voters, are not voting. So even in the last regional elections, we had this problem of really half the population not going to vote. So that's really where the stake is. So basically, we really need to find a way for our democratic process to have people going to vote and to express their opinion.
Thanks, Marta.
Parties.
Thank you. I just want to bring Lorenzo in on that. Lorenzo, I think some people would be shocked by that. We see Italians as very switched on, politically interested, and yet half the country doesn't bother voting.
Well, it depends also on the political offer, so to speak. So if you think that there is a chance to win and to bring someone else in government, then you can actually attract the voters. If the political offer is somewhat disappointing, clearly people prefer to stay at home. That's how it is, in my view. But don't be misled by local elections. I think local elections sometimes have different dynamics. So I think we will see at the next political elections whether the situation will be the same. It doesn't depend only on the government, of course. It depends also on the opposition. The opposition is very much divided on a number of issues right now. So unless they manage to have a united front with some united kind of policies, then I think it would be difficult to attract voters back to the polls.
Valeria, when you think back not that long ago, Italy was led by Silvio Berlusconi, and your country, with the greatest of respect, I love Italy, I adore your country, I speak your language. Internationally, a lot of people laughed at Italy having a man like Berlusconi, all the scandals, the allegations of corruption, everything that followed Berlusconi. Meloni has really improved Italy's international standing and credibility, hasn't she?
Yes, definitely Meloni is pretty much aware of the centrality of Italy as a Mediterranean country, but also in the enlarged Mediterranean basin. And also she's pretty much aware, as it was mentioned before, she's very pragmatic and realistic. She's pretty much aware that in this very hectic international and regional environment, Italy as a middle power has to gain the centrality, has to establish relationship and partnership in a sort of win-win logic with other countries. And I do believe also that her very genuine, direct stance gained the hearts and the sympathy of many regional and worldwide leaders as well. One of the main points of Giorgia Meloni when it comes to international agenda, besides making Italy as a Mediterranean hub, is also related to Africa. So this new importance granted to Africa along with Mattei Plan by default, push Italy to establish a sort of win-win partnership and connections. And that's why, basically, Meloni, beside her personal characters and personal traits, but also along with the dossier that she's working in, is pretty much appreciating as and acknowledged as a good interlocutor for the many regional leaders and also worldwide.
Thanks, Valeria. Jim, back to you. Talk to me about the relationship with President Trump, because not only does he really like her, he also very much rates her. I mean, if you look at any of the international gatherings of leaders, Italy is suddenly front and centre alongside Trump.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that important here is the obvious ideological overlaps between Meloni and Trump. They are both, I mean, I suppose not everybody would agree with this, but, many people would see both leaders as belonging to the populist right. Giorgia Meloni has tried to profile herself very much as the main sort of bridge between Europe and Trump. I think also going back to what was being said earlier about the very pragmatic nature of Giorgia Meloni's attempt to engage with the international institutions. Meloni, just like other European leaders, is very much aware of the power of the United States and the dependence of their individual countries on the United States. So that is important too. Yes, I think that what we have to understand is that both Trump and Meloni are, as I said, populist leaders. They both like to position themselves as the most authentic representatives of ordinary people against the establishment. You can see this in the rhetoric of both politicians. So there is no doubt that there is a very great degree of fellow feeling between the two leaders.
Thanks,
absolutely.
Jim. Thanks, Jim. Back to you, Marta. I want to talk about this project that she wants to build, the bridge from mainland Italy to Sicily, costing billions of euro. It's very ambitious. Do you think she will eventually get that to happen? And that level of money and investment, it would be the kind of defining project to deliver for any Italian prime minister, wouldn't it?
Well, it could be. It could be one of the main, let's say, physical things that you can actually see coming out of her mandate. It's something that has been there on paper for decades in Italy. It's very ambitious. It's very costly, and it has some technical issues that are have always been considered when talking about that bridge. I don't know if in the end it will be possible to make it happen. It will take years to happen. It seems that they are actually working to make it work, and it's possible. Yes, I think that it could happen. There are again many groups that are actually against that kind of project for many structural reasons. And we'll see if they will succeed or not. It will be, I mean, if it happens, it is really one of the main, most important projects on the table at the moment. So it would be a great success if that happened and if it's done well.
Thank you, Marta. Lorenzo, on the money side of things, I want to ask you about the policy she brought in whereby very wealthy foreigners are able to come and live in cities like Milan and Rome, for example, and they just pay €200,000 a year in tax and they're allowed to stay there. That's brought a lot of money, a lot of investment into Italy in the last year or so, hasn't it?
Well, I think it has attracted a lot of attention internationally, but the reality, the phenomenon is not so big. In other words, there have been a few thousand, Italians moving back from London to Milan and maybe other places, but this is not a mass phenomenon. Okay, it's restricted to a relatively small number of people. In terms of revenues, it's about half a billion, and so by Italian standards, I mean it's a big amount, but not massive. Okay, so it's not really changing. I think it's certainly a distortion. I certainly believe that it shouldn't stay, but there are many other distortions in Europe, unfortunately, on taxation. Thinking about Ireland or the Netherlands that attract companies at reduced rates. So I think it's a European problem. So we need to find a way to harmonize the treatment of taxation throughout various countries. That is particularly true for corporate taxation, but probably we should also tackle the competition on personal taxation, because that might be detrimental as well.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Valeria, to you, the whole issue of public debt in Italy, 145% approximately of GDP, how much of a pressing concern is that for Italians, that the country is spending more than it takes in taxes?
Well, I think Meloni is trying to, I mean, this government is trying to adjust the rate and the economy, but there is something which is, I would say, genetic of the Italian, of the Italian system. For example, when it comes to the public debt, it was something that it was already there when Italy joined the European Union, along with the Maastricht and anything. Definitely, we can say that the Meloni's government, to some extent, is a successful story. But when it comes to economy, when it comes to fiscal measure, and it was mentioned, there are still some issues. Definitely, when we look at the GDP, we witness a small growth, which is not really, does not have a great impact in terms of economy. And then I think has also much to do, I do believe, with the regional conjecture and with European conjecture we are living in nowadays. Meloni, when she came to power, stressed a lot the importance of the so-called reconstruction plan and recovery plan after the pandemic. Much have been said, but so far we did not bear the fruits that she promised. So this can be seen as one of the main critical points of her political tenure.
Thanks, Valeria. Jim, to you, just looking forward then, 2 years out from the next Italian election, Meloni clearly is a very ambitious woman. She speaks so well. She has great relationships with other world leaders. It's going to take a very significant candidate from the opposition to stop her winning again.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. Unfortunately for Giorgia Meloni's opponents, they are not well placed at all. There are significant divisions among the parties of the opposition. And to go back to one of your earlier questions, I think this is very much related to the fact that the parties of the opposition fish in the same pool of voters. In other words, although it is true that recent years have seen a considerable increase in electoral volatility and electoral mobility, it remains the case that very, very few voters switch between left and right. Okay, so this means that the parties of opposition are fishing in the same pool of voters, and so really only one party of the opposition could only gain at the expense of another party. And so in order to do that, they have to raise their own distinctive profiles, which makes it more difficult for them to reach the kind of cooperation arrangements that they would need in order to present a united front to the government. So yes, there is no doubt that Meloni is very, very strong. She's very strong within her coalition because she heads what is by far the largest party, and so is able to lead, by the standards of recent governments and not so recent governments, a very, very stable government. Again, to go back to one of your earlier questions and one of the earlier responses, one of the reasons voters don't turn out is because, they see no viable alternative. So, yes, undoubtedly, Giorgia Meloni is very well placed, and as things stand at the moment, it's difficult to see. Of course, a lot can change in the next elections are not due until 2027, and a lot can change in 2 years. But at the moment, it's very difficult to see the emergence of any significant challenger to Meloni. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jim. Final question to Marta. Marta, if you were to score Giorgia Meloni's performance so far, say out of 10, what mark would you give her?
Well, if I have to give it by the, as we were saying, but the longevity of her government, it's a high vote. But if I have to say my personal opinion, it's a very low vote, like 4 maybe.
4. Just tell me, go on then. You've got a strong woman leading Italy. Just briefly tell me why just 4 out of 10?
Because of the policies that she's implementing, not because of her performance. Her performance is working. I mean, she has a strong government. They are working on what they believe in. But if I have to say what they are doing, I strongly disagree with most of the policies they're bringing on.
Marta, thank you so much. Valeria, Lorenzo and Jim in Umbria, grazie mille tutti. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.